I'm back going over my second draft from the Arena Open on Sunday the 2nd. Um, so uh, started with this pack. Defiler of Dreams is a weaker blue card than Tolarian Terror. This pick I consider a really, really clear, easy Tolarian Terror. I there are a lot of cards where I could see going either way, or might go A or B depending on my mood or something. I think I'm just taking Tolarian Terror here every time. If someone had a strong preference, I could see taking the Cult Conscript over it, but for me, this is a clear Tolarian Terror. I don't think. I mean, yeah, I could imagine justifying like Cult Conscript or Tribute or whatever, but I think that it is correct to take Terror here. Defiler's not bad, but it's not as strong as Tolarian Terror in a vast majority of blue decks. I think like if you're blue enough for Defiler to be actively good, the way that blue is structured is going to lead to Tolarian Terror being better almost all the time. Second pack, this is between Aquifer and I guess Mana Worker, Shadow Prophecy, Rootwalla, Argivian Cavalier. Argivian Cavalier is like a reasonable thing to do. It's independently a strong card. I think this pack is pretty weak. I went with Aquifer because it's leaves me really open. I like Terror a lot in blue-black, and I didn't think that it was worth choosing another color for one of these commons. Question about Balduvian Berserker as an overperformer. I believe Berserker is a card that I was a little bit high on early in the format because my opponent had it with Phyrexian Warhorse, which I think is a really good combo. You get to sack creatures to the Warhorse to make it big, and then enlist the Warhorse into the Berserker, and then sack the Berserker for like a giant attack. But I think outside of that context, I haven't been very impressed with Berserker, and I don't think it has good stats. So anyway, this to me was actually a pretty clear and easy Aquifer. And I really do strongly prefer to pair black with my Tolarian Terrors. I know that I think there are some people who think of Tolarian Terror as a blue-red card. I think that it plays slightly better with black, although anywhere in there is fine. So next up, the cards I would consider here are like Frightful Return, Rona, Artillery Blast, and Soaring Drake, maybe a black 2. I don't know, whatever. This is another pack with a whole bunch of like mediocre cards, and I just take Haunted Mire here. I want my blue-black decks to be able to splash Urborg Repossession and or Bortok Bone Rattle and or whatever else, usually one of those two specifically, but you never know. Again, I just didn't think any of these cards were worth taking over a land. So yeah, so I take the Haunted Mire here. Here, same situation. I think there are some versions of Tolarian Terror decks that use Colossal Growth well, but there's no reason for me to try to put myself there. I like having white duels so that I can splash any Destroy Evils that I see. And I think this pack is just weak overall, so I took the Sunlit Marsh. This is another pack that's pretty weak, but I have a Tolarian Terror to start, so I'll take Joint Exploration to start powering it and also help navigate what might end up being a deck with a lot of colors. So I just take Joint Exploration here. Again, no cards I really like, but and Tributary is going into new colors from what my lands have, but my cards are blue, it's blue. Maybe I'm blue-red with a bunch of splashes. I really don't know at this point. All I know is I'm doing something with Tolarian Terror, and I don't like any of these other cards. So take the Tributary. Pixie seems fine. Pixie's fine. I agree with Pixie's fine. I think in general, in the decks that want Pixie, they want Pixie because they're playing a bunch of colors, and I would rather have my fourth dual land than my first Pixie in a multicolor deck. Um, this is between Timely Interference, Outside Argument for Gaia's Might, outside because it is only good in a specific kind of deck, whereas Timely Interference is going to be good in any Tolarian Terror deck, and Tributary. I'm a little worried at this point about just like not having spells, but I also think Timely Interference is a relatively low cost thing to give up for a Tributary. I think I take Tributary. I think right now I would take Tributary, but I took Timely. I don't think I would want Tura here. I'd rather have the trigger for it. I think the pick between Tributary and Timely is really close. Yeah, worried about just like, if lands are this open in pack one and I have this many, if they continue to be open, I could easily just run into a spot where like I don't have anything going on. Timely Interference is really good with Tolarian Terror, both in terms of letting you cast it earlier, and Tolarian Terror is good at like eating creatures with it. So I think this pick's very, very close. Apparently I went with the Interference. This pack also isn't good. I think this pick is between Warbrute and Amplifier, and I guess Steel Crusher, but I think I like Amplifier more here. I prefer Steel Crusher as a 2-drop to Amplifier when you're planning to cast it on 2 most of the time, I think. But I have kind of come up on Amplifier as a 5 in multicolor decks. So I think I took the Amplifier here. Yeah. I could, like, if you'd taken the Gaia's Might, the previous pick, then I think I kind of like the Warbrute here. If you're kind of like trying to navigate into the like Temur Tricks space. But I would rather be in the like Grixis Splash Destroy Evil control space to the like Temur Tricks space if given the option. So take the Amplifier here. Flowstone Infusion or Relic of Legends are both reasonable. I don't think anything else is. Relic of Legends supports the, well, I'm set up to play a bunch of colors. I guess I want to have good mana space. Flowstone Infusion supports the like blue-red spells space. I think I take Infusion here. Yeah. There's like a button to show picks. Okay, cool. Question about, I think Grixis spells, or well, multicolor spell control is where I'm most comfortable. And of course, this is, most of the drafts that I play, I am looking to learn. This was a draft where each win is, for my first 2 wins is another $1,000. So I'm certainly on, this is as drafting for real as you're going to see from me. So to that extent, I'm looking to find my way into my comfort zone. So this is definitely very much about drafting for me winning games specifically, which is like not the thing that I'm necessarily always trying to draft for. So just something to keep in mind. Here, this is between a Mana Worker and Sentry. Because I prefer the like not green multicolor decks to the green domain. Oh, you could also take Scavenger here actually. Um, I have a bunch of colors. Yeah, now that I think about it, I think I like Scavenger over Mana Worker over Sentry. Uh, I think Scavenger is just going to be reasonable to cast and find my missing colors if I'm like blue with a bunch of stuff. I don't know that I'm trying to do anything hard on my mana that would make me want the Mana Worker, and I don't really want to go into the like base green where I'd want the Sentry. Um, yeah, I think I should have taken Scavenger. I did take Mana Worker. I think that I'm a little bit dismissive of Scavenger in general because I think in most decks it's weaker than Librarian, and you can usually get those pretty easily. But I think I probably should have gone with the Scavenger here, given what I know at this exact moment. I do think Sentry is the strongest of these cards, but I really do have a preference against the kind of deck that wants Sentry. I think this is a very easy land. So in best of one, I would take Tidepool Turtle here. I think it's playable filler if you need it in a defensive deck. But in best of three, which this was, I think it's reasonable to take Smash to Dust as a sideboard card, which is what I did. I'm never going to play either of these cards. I took the momentum. I'd rather pass the charge, which is like putting someone in a deck with very little overlap to what I'm looking for, rather than splash the impede momentum, or rather than send the blue card. This is just choosing to give the person next to me a heroic charge because it's better for me if they have it than if they don't. So now I open this pack. I think this is a very clear Fires of Victory over Liliana and Geyser and Balmor. I think that I could see people convincing themselves to take any of those over Fires, but for me, it's Fires by a lot. I'm still, you know, feeling way more comfortable with like the control space to the like red aggro space. I don't think this pool is like pushing me toward the aggro space. I really like the, pretty clean 2-for-1 or early removal spell here. So yeah, for me, an easy Fires. This is a pretty interesting pack. I think reasonable options include arguably Mossbeard Ancient, Destroy Evil, Outrider, Pixie, and Bog, and Gaia's Might, I guess, and Take Up the Shield, maybe. I am a Destroy Evil enthusiast, so I take the Destroy Evil here. I suspect that many players would take the Outrider instead. I am really not trying to end up in the like aggressive blue-red space. I really do want to be just like a bunch of removal and Tolarian Terrors. Yeah, I'm always going to value Destroy Evil super highly. This is between Vohar, Academy Wall, and I guess like long shot argument for Morrow. Academy Wall is significantly easier to cast, but Vohar is more powerful. Given the duels that I have, I think that it's worth taking the more powerful card. So I take Vohar here. I also particularly like Vohar when I have, Fires and Destroy Evil is like very good cards to cast off of it. This pack is not very strong. I think this is a pretty clear Molten Tributary, which is what I took. I don't know why I wouldn't take that here. It's just none of these cards are particularly good for me. This is between Geyser and other cards that are definitely worse than Geyser. Like, Ridgeline's not a priority for me because I'm not very domain heavy, and I'm not currently planning to play any green cards. So I take the Geyser. This is a pretty easy Essence Scatter for my reactive deck. Yeah, no real alternative here for me. This is somewhat interesting between Espionage, Vine Wall, and Artillery Blast. I am currently, in my mind, low on ways to get up cards, and pretty high on ways to trade one card for one card. So I wanted to have, some draw spells to get advantage out of my trading off. So I take the Espionage here. This is between, I think Phyrexian Rager is basically just better than Rona at this stage. So it's between Phyrexian Rager and Shore Up. And I think that pick is somewhat close. I believe I take the Shore Up here. Yeah. Just try to protect the Terror. It's another cheap spell. Can also protect Vohar. I think this is just close. This is a really easy Academy Wall, which I'm pretty happy to pick up. Yeah. I think like maybe Battlefly Swarm would be the next best option, but my only black card is currently Vohar, so I don't really like. Vohar is good to play on 2, but it's also fine to play like late game and immediately activate to like cast something from your graveyard. Battlefly Swarm needs you to like play it early and then like have black mana up and stuff, and it's not very realistic. There's a phrasing that I hate because it doesn't make any sense, which is, do you ever take Stall for Time here? I'm only in this exact spot once, and I make the pick that I make here. If I were in this exact spot again, I would make the same pick again. I don't think Stall for Time is close to as good as Academy Wall in this deck. I believe that there's a different question that this tries to get at. This comes up a lot. I don't really understand what the different question is trying to get at is. I think Academy Wall is very clearly better than Stall for Time in basically any deck that is prioritizing attrition rather than tempo, and this deck is on the far end of the attrition over tempo spectrum. Stall for Time is a tempo card, Academy Wall is an attrition card. So yeah, this is not very close, and Stall for Time is not a card that I'm looking for. This is a weak pack. I think Founding would be reasonable to pair with a Repossession if I get one later, but not a card that I'd want to play otherwise. I think that Sea Scavenger is probably right, and I think it's what I took. No, I took Founding. Okay. Yeah, this is basically like, am I going to end up short on playables such that I want Sea Scavenger, or do I want the upside of having Founding with Repossession if I end up with Threatlight? It looks like I went with Founding. I am hoping to play neither of these cards. It's interesting that like my previous draft had the Scavengers that I think were really good in that deck, and then the next draft I'm still like kind of overlooking them, which I don't feel horrible about, but I think that I maybe should have taken one or both Scavengers when I could have. This is between Automatic Librarian and Territorial Morrow. As mentioned, I don't really want Stall for Time if I'm not a tempo deck, and I'm not a tempo deck. And I think Morrow actually has a pretty high ceiling here. I'm very domainy, and there's nothing stopping me from casting Morrow. So I think Morrow is actually a pretty nice gift here, which I take. Being a little threat light, I like having this really high impact creature here. This pack's horrible. I believe I take the Tide Turner. This is actually a little bit interesting. Tidepool Turtle is a defensible like creature to play if you're super creature light, which I am. But I think Artillery Blast is a respectable removal spell, and I'm just going to count on pack 3 to let me find ways to actually win the game. So I take the Artillery Blast here, and then get forced and enthrall to the pit. And I'm really, really, really happy to see this pack. I think that this is actually the best kind of deck for Squee. I want to pair Squee with all card draw and removal so that you're good at escaping it, and then it's like pretty good at giving you a reliable threat to win the game, which I think is exactly what this deck was missing. So I think Squee is among the like best cards I could have opened for this deck. So of course I take it over some other okay cards. But yeah, I considered Squee kind of like transformative for this deck. This pack is pretty weak. I think I just take Espionage here, which I'll be disappointed in myself if I don't take Espionage. I don't think this is very close. I'm still looking for more card draw, and none of these other cards are very good. Question about Lagomos. I don't have anything that takes advantage of the creatures. I don't really need the threat now that I have Squee, and I'm not black enough to reliably cast this early. I think this card is, you know, not appreciably different than like Flowstone Kavu would be in my deck, which is obviously not a card that I want. This is a very easy Geyser. I guess the alternative would be Pixie Illusionist. Geyser is a much better card. Geyser plays really, really well with Squee, specifically incidentally bouncing their blocker and then giving you more fuel for Squee. This is a very late Tatyova. I'm not well set up to play Tatyova, but Tatyova is really, really strong, and the next best card is probably Karplusan Forest, which I have no interest in if I'm not playing Tatyova, since the only green card that I'm splashing is Maro that really wants to be splashed off of a forest specifically. And given that I have like a lot of card draw, and also my color requirements are pretty easy. Like, I have several red cards showing here, but realistically, I don't care about any of them other than Squee and Fires. So I have like 2 meaningful red cards, 2 meaningful white, 1.5 meaningful white cards, 1 meaningful black card, 1 meaningful green card. There's nothing stopping me at this point from like green being my second color. It's probably going to be my tertiary color after red, but I'm still extremely open, even though we're like getting toward the end of the draft here. So as much as Tatyova is like off of where I had been, I don't think it's actually going to be very hard to take advantage of in this deck. So pretty happy to see it and take it and play it. Really happy to see a Bone Rattle here. I'm a little bit threat light. Bone Rattle's awesome. Bone Rattle's great with Tatyova and Vohar, and also great with fully enabled Territorial Maro if it comes up. Also, I have multiple geysers to reuse the Bone Rattle, so like this pack is going really, really, really well for me. The Squee I mentioned was transformative, but this deck was still looking for meaningful threats. So Tatyova into Bone Rattle. Now I'm feeling really, really good about this deck. It has everything I'm looking for. I have my removal, which I got, you know, scattered throughout. I would like a little bit more removal than I have, but I'm not like desperately lacking. I have the mana that I got in pack 1. I have a good mix of like threats and card draw. So yeah, like Tatyova into Bone Rattle is where this deck really solidified as like having everything I'm looking for. This pack is really weak. this pick, I think, is between Picker, Bite Down, and Take Up the Shield. And I think that Take Up the Shield is going to play really well with Tolarian Terror and Territorial Morrow. That's what I take here. I think I've not been playing Take Up the Shield enough. Take Up the Shield was really, really important in some of my games against really aggressive decks that would try to get me low. The massive life gain swing from Take Up the Shield as a way to stabilize was huge. So Take Up the Shield is actually a pretty big boon for this deck and a pretty weak pack. This is between Blast, Vine Wall, Magnagoth Sentry, Soaring Drake, and Thrill of Possibilities, which is a lot of cards to be considering this late. The reason is that I think they're all pretty mediocre. Vine Wall is pretty good fixing if I'm going like heavy green because of the Tatiova. It's nice with the geysers if I want more green. Sentry gives this deck a reach creature. I don't have anything that costs 4 that I'm looking to play currently, so like getting a 4 is pretty nice. These decks I've struggled sometimes due to not having a reach creature. I think my curve strongly prefers Sentry to Soaring Drake, so that lets me dismiss the Soaring Drake. So it's between then Blast, Vinewall, and Sentry. I mentioned that I was a little bit lower on removal than I wanted to be. I genuinely don't remember if I took Blast, Vinewall, or Sentry. I think there are good arguments for all of them, and I think any would be a totally fine pick here. And I take Thrill Possibility. Sure. I think that's okay too. You know, I'm looking to accelerate the Tolarian Terror, and I'm currently kind of like heavier red than green, so like using that as fixing rather than using the Vine Wall as fixing also makes sense. Yeah, I don't know. I think there's that do you ever take X here? And I guess the answer here is yes. In this exact spot on different days, I might take any of those 4 cards. This is a pretty interesting one between Islet, Take Up the Shield, and Vinewall. I think I just take Islet, which I think is right. I think I have like enough playables, and Islet's meaningfully good for my mana. That's what I do. This is between Sojourner and Relic of Legends. I have enough land type different, like I'm Domania enough and low creature enough that I think Sojourner is much better in this deck than Necromass. But I'm looking to play solid 5 color, and I'm good on dual lands, but I'm really bad on actual like lots of color sources. Like I don't have any pixies. I have 1 mana worker. And I think that it's really, really, really hard to get enough sources of your colors off only dual lands. If you're like, I guess Zach Hill recently mentioned to me that he kind of like established a rule for himself that like only play 4 or 5 color if you have you know, for like 5 color help. Like don't try to do it off dual lands. And I think that that's a really good rule. Every instance of a card like Relic adds so many colored mana sources to your deck. Like this is +5 colored mana sources over a spell, whereas like a duel is +1 colored mana source over a land, over a basic. That like you just need like a million, like you need an unreasonable number of basics to equal, you know, like a mana worker and a relic. So if this deck's struggling anywhere, it's struggling on like number of sources, and relic is the solution to that. Grotto does count as 5-color help. Incidentally, the way this draft turned out, given what I'm saying about how much I needed 5-color sources, I think that taking the mana worker over the 3/2, even if that was the wrong pick at the time, ended up working out way better for me. Such that I'm now coming around to actually, I think it was right to take the mana worker over the scavenger, because the decks that need mana worker like actually need it, whereas no one has ever needed a scavenger. And I really didn't know what my deck was going to look like at the time that I made that pick. So I'm gonna, fully forgive myself for the mana worker over sea scavenger pick, and in fact go so far as to say that I think it was right. So yeah, take relic here, and now none of this other stuff matters. I'll take the meteorite in case I like decide my mana situation's too bad or want to like board it in to kill some 2 toughness creature thing that I care about. And now, all right, so I got this really lucky string of fixing at the end of this draft to shore up my potential loose 5-color mana situation. Late Illusionist is great. Sea Scavenger here pretty clearly. I guess there's a world where you like could consider taking Snare Spinner to side in against Flyers, given that this is best of 3. And I think I'm not going to play the Sea Scavenger. So this, if maybe Snare Spinner was actually right there, but I took the Scavenger. I'd need to like actually try to like build my deck to know if the Scavenger's like has a chance of making it or not. I get a Snare Spinner anyway, so it's all fine. I don't think I end up boarding it in it ever, regardless. And so that was the draft and the deck that I built. This is showing only deck 1. I believe that means that I never sideboarded. My sideboard was pretty bad. So this is my deck. It does have traits in common with the first deck. They're both relatively low curve domain decks that prioritize cheap removal. The big difference is that this one has some espionages because it doesn't have the codex. So you want like either espionage or codex. If you don't have codex, you want a bunch of card draw. If you have a bunch of card draw, you don't want codex. So, and then this has like card draw plus Academy Wall and Vohar to accomplish roughly what codex is accomplishing in terms of keeping a steady stream of quality spells you can cast. And then where the other deck was like using Root Wall as well, this one has like strong uncommons. And, this one has like Squee, Tatiova, and Tolaria and Terror. And then like Marrow and Bone Rattle. So I think this is basically just a really well-rounded, typical kind of blue-based 5-color control deck. Is there a matchup where I'd board in Founding? Maybe if I thought that milling my opponent for 4 was like likely to make me actually deck them. Oh yeah, worth noting, I did play 15 lands in this deck. I played 15 lands here because I have a good amount of card drawing and nothing that costs more than 3, basically. I have 2 cards that actually demand more than 3 mana. The Tolaria and Terror is often going to cost 3. Tatiova uses, Tatiova wants more, but 3 is going to get me to the point where I can cast these espionages and geysers, and I have like Joint Exploration and Timely. And I have, Relic as an additional mana source. This deck, I have a ton of cheap 1-for-1s. So if I like stall on 2 lands but have some removal spells for a little while, I'm like pretty happy with that. This is like it's basically like if you 1-for-1 and flood out, you lose. If you one for one and stall, you stay alive and you eventually draw into your lands. When you are really, really, really attrition based and removal heavy and it's all cheap stuff, it's really good to think about lowering your land count. Oh yeah, Squee might have been the reason that I took Thrill in that spot where I surprised myself with the Thrill pick. Thrill is really good with Squee, both in terms of being good at fueling Squee, and it's also reasonable to just discard Squee to Thrill the first time so that you're kind of getting it as a free card. Is it possible to get access to my game replays for this deck? Yes. As far as getting access, subscribers of Drafting Archetypes Patreon get access to all of my 17 lands data. There's a question about whether I've found myself making similar decisions in this format, playing fewer lands with card draw. Yes, very regularly. The question is, does it come up a fair bit? Yes, it comes up a ton. I prioritize like impulse and espionage pretty highly, so I play like a lot of 15 and 16 land blue decks. So that is my second draft. There's another question: would this play repossession? If so, what would it replace? Yes, I mean, anytime I would play repossession in basically any deck that can cast it. Certainly in a deck that's threat light and has really high impact threats. As to what it would replace, that's basically just what's my worst card. G2 Amplifier stands out as a good option to cut if you had another good card here. Though there's not really like, any of the mediocre stuff, Amplifier, Flowstone Infusion, Artillery Blast, Thrill are all cuttable cards. I think it would be the Amplifier that I would cut, though. Yeah, so thanks for watching. Hope you found this helpful, and I don't have anything to say about a regular return to this kind of thing. This is just the way that I'm covering some drafts that I did in a way that I wasn't recording because I was focusing on competing. This and the previous draft did earn me the $2,500 prize from Arena. So also thanks to Wizards for running Arena Opens. This was great. All right. Bye for now. And you can catch me on stream most days, drafting and talking about Limited. And bye.